Hi, this is Daniela Wolf with Bestie Life, the podcast, and this is your community to support you through the little and not so little events that make up your day-to-day life. From the I've got this moments to the I just can't moments. We are here to empower all women to find and develop the skills they need to find peace, balance, and the bliss in their busy. Through solo episodes as well as interviews with amazing women who share their journey and their story and how it works for you. I hope you find the inspirations to make you laugh, think, as well as maybe rethink what you thought you knew, and connect as we realize that we are all living similar ups and downs and don't have to do it alone. So excited for you to hear this episode, and thanks so much for joining me today. Hi, this is Daniela with Bestie Life, the podcast. And today I'm excited to dive into this conversation and introduce you to Morgan Adams. She is a transformative holistic sleep coach who empowers women to conquer their battle with sleepless nights without relying on sleep medications and things like that. She has a powerful sleep toolkit that we're going to dive into that not only allows women to experience a profound enhancement with their sleep quality, but also she's going to guide them in rekindling their relationship with sleep, paving the way for less stressful and more fulfilling days, because absolutely your night affects your day. And by working on that relationship, it's going to be huge. So thank you so much, Morgan, for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me, Danielle. I appreciate it.
So if you could share a little bit more about your background, your journey, and what led you to where you are today.
Sure. Well, I got into this field of sleep coaching because I actually struggled with insomnia myself for 8 years. This was quite a while ago, but during that time, I was dependent on Ambien, which is a really commonly known sleep aid. And I ended up stopping the Ambien at the urging of my new boyfriend at the time, who is now my husband. He said, when you take that pill, you kind of act like a zombie and it freaks me out. And I thought, yes, that's probably correct. I should try to not take this pill. I did what I don't recommend people do, though. I just went off it myself without any guidance from my provider. So if you're out there and you're on a medication, be it Ambien or some other thing, consult with your prescribing provider before you go off of it to get a taper schedule. So anyway, I got off the pills on my own successfully because I've got a lot of grit. I got through it and slept pretty well for many years after that. And then there was a little bit of a plot twist. In 2020, March, we all kind of collectively went through this together in the early stages of the pandemic. My sleep started to tank again, and I got really concerned because I did not want to go down that road of insomnia. So I started to proactively research sleep, Googling sleep tips. And fortunately, I was able to get my sleep back on track pretty quickly. And I got so intrigued with how quickly my sleep was turning around that I started to just organically share on Facebook some of the things that I was doing to help my sleep. And what I came to find out is that a lot of other women in my circle were struggling at the same time and found my tips very helpful. And I thought, you know what? I really want to do something with my life that is helping women get healthier, have more vibrance, and be happier. And I thought, well, the ticket is sleep. Here we go, because there's so many women struggling. And so that's kind of how I got the idea. And then I launched this practice in 2021. So it's been great. It's been fun to see these transformations of women who were struggling to sleep, who are sleeping really soundly. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, no, and definitely when you talk about, going on different pills and the reliance, and I had a family member who ended up driving someplace they didn't even know when they were on Ambien, because that's definitely just such a different level of sleep. I don't even know, how safe that can be to not know what you're consciously doing if you're on that at different points in time and things like that. As well as I've been through my own ups and downs with sleep at different points in my life, hormonal changes, kids, all sorts of stuff. I've gone from being a very deep sleeper to now, like my husband, unfortunately, breathing. Sometimes he'll wake me up in the middle of the night. And so I'm always looking for new ideas and strategies to kind of naturally and holistically help my sleep that doesn't require relying on medication. And I think there's a lot of us out there that are just looking for some answers, because it can be so debilitating to not get a good night's sleep. Once in a while here and there, fine. But when it becomes such a chronic thing, your quality of life is so compromised.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that as we get into midlife, we as women are particularly vulnerable to this. I mean, I think the
Hmm.
statistic is like half of women in midlife, menopausal age, have sleep struggles. So we're definitely not alone. And I'm struggling as well sometimes being
Hmm.
in perimenopause. So I'm having to coach myself at times, which is quite
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, because what used to work sometimes doesn't work. And I don't know if you see specific differences as far as how to address whether it's falling asleep or staying asleep. Because I know, I've gone through both where sometimes it's, my mind's racing, I don't fall asleep. And other times it's like, for whatever reason, I'm up at 2:30 in the morning and I'm just like, poof, up.
Yeah, that's a really, really great question because those are the two most common challenges with sleep. And in my experience, the most common one is waking up in the middle of the night and not being able
Mhm.
to get back to sleep. Now, this is a generality that I'll share with you, but we typically see problems falling asleep more related to like worries and anxieties and unhappiness in their lives, right?
Okay.
Not a hard and fast rule, but that's a generality. Middle of the night awakenings tend to be a little bit more based on physical issues or sleep environment issues. Again, a general rule. We can mix and
Mhm.
match the both, but they are both extreme challenges when it comes to getting good sleep, especially the middle of the night wake ups as we get into perimenopause.
Yeah.
Hugely challenging.
And as well as, and it's not always even hot flash related. And I know a lot of people automatically assume that, but definitely, I think, have you been able to find some specific things that really help with some of those different types of sleep or ways to approach your sleep to kind of root out what is the cause?
Yeah, well, if you're talking about the wake ups, what I'm commonly saying as the cause of the wake ups are a few things. I mean, there can be multiple things, but let me just say off the bat that when we are sleeping, we're going through these different sleep stages. And at the end of each sleep stage, we actually have a brief awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually very, very quick. Like if it's under 3 minutes, we're not going to remember it. The problem is when it's longer than that and we stress out about being awakened, right? But so I guess my point being, like, don't think that it's abnormal if you wake up in the middle of the night because that's kind of how we're designed. And that aside, some of the other than the sleep stage wake ups, what I'm seeing quite commonly in my population of clients are a few things in no particular order. I'm just calling them out as I'm remembering them. But one is blood sugar dysregulation. So often that 2 or 3 a.m. awakening is because somebody has had a blood sugar crash. And when that
Mm-hmm.
happens, there's this cortisol and adrenaline spike that wakes us up. And that can be the cause. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the fixes for that is having a very small snack about an hour before you go to bed. And that small snack would be something like maybe a little bit of Greek yogurt with some almonds on top. We're talking like 200 calorie or less snack. We're not talking about ice cream and cookies. That will make your sleep worse. So that's a strategy people can employ if they're not sure why they're having these wake ups overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing that I'm saying, and you kind of mentioned this earlier, but it's not necessarily hot flashes, although that's impactful, very much so, but it's just being too hot. So
Mm-hmm.
we're overheated at night. And sometimes we don't really even realize it. So what you can do is really focus on lowering the temperature of your sleeping space by
Mm-hmm.
a few degrees. So there's not like a magic number that the temperature needs to be at, but we're talking somewhere in the 60s usually. I keep my house at 68. That's
Mm-hmm.
probably a little warm for some people, but somewhere in that mid 60s range is probably going to be the sweet spot. Having breathable sheets and bedwear, like specifically bamboo, tends to be a little bit more cooling. And then next level cooling capacity are the cooling mattress pads. Now they're a little bit of an investment,
Mm-hmm.
but I have found using one for the past couple of years to be a massive game changer in my own sleep. So that's sort of like the next level intervention. And then really the third wake up that I see most commonly happening is caused by sleep breathing issues.
Okay.
So that would be mainly sleep apnea. And what is interesting about sleep apnea in women particularly is that we don't often present in the same way that men present. So
Mm-hmm.
like if you think about somebody who has sleep apnea, you might just envision Homer Simpson middle-aged guy with a
Yeah.
beer belly on the couch snoring, right?
Right.
But there are a lot of midlife women out there who are slender, athletic, not overweight whatsoever, who are developing sleep breathing issues. And one of the reasons why that's happening is because as we start to age and we lose the estrogen and progesterone, that actually impacts our airways negatively.
Mhm.
So by the time women reach midlife, their incidence of sleep breathing issues basically matches those of their male counterparts in that same age range.
Wow.
And so some of the signs of women having sleep apnea would be, yes, snoring, but that's not always the key one. It could
Mhm.
be more subtle breath changes, stopping breathing. And sometimes, honestly, if the woman has a male bed partner, the male bed partner's out like a light and they don't hear, they're not aware that their female partner is pausing their breathing or has breathing irregularities at all.
Right.
And then another telltale sign of anyone who's got sleep apnea the next day is, headaches, dry mouth, feeling extremely sleepy, like they could just fall asleep, even though they've had like 7 or 8 hours of sleep. So if that is someone listening, like definitely get a sleep study, definitely have your breathing assessed. You can do it from home these days. You don't have to go to a sleep lab. They have them that
Okay.
they can send them to you. They've got ones you can order online as a consumer. So those, I mean, those are just a few examples of reasons why we might wake up in the middle of the night. Now, what do we do when we wake up in the middle of the night? That's a whole other topic. So if you are waking up and you can't get back to sleep and you find yourself tossing and turning, stressing about being awake, the best thing to do is actually to get out of bed, go to another room if possible, and do something relaxing, calm, pleasant, and dim light until you begin to feel sleepy again, at which point you make your way back to the bedroom. The reason why we do this is because we want to disassociate your bed with stress. We don't want those two to be paired. And by removing yourself from the situation where you're stressed, that actually helps strengthen the association between bed and sleep.
Right.
So that's what I would recommend for people who are tossing and turning is just get up, go somewhere. And it's not, sometimes you'll hear people say, if you've been awake for like 20 minutes, I don't really believe in that. I believe that once you start to stress out, whether that's 5 minutes or an hour, you should get out of bed and do something else.
Right. And this might be a super unpopular opinion, but I'd always heard as well to not have a TV in your bedroom. Like I've never had one because, again, you associate it then with I'm going to watch TV, I'm going to be entertained, as opposed to I'm just there to sleep.
Yeah, I mean the TV in the bedroom has its downsides, and that's one of them. But one of the other downsides is that sometimes people will fall asleep with them, and then the light from the TV is actually not healthy for our metabolism and cardiovascular system. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't want any light around you while you're sleeping. And secondly, if you leave the TV on, you're going to find that you could potentially get woken up by the random noises that are coming from the TV. So
Mm-hmm.
like I've worked, I've worked with clients where they're just like, look, my spouse wants the TV in the bedroom and so that they can't resolve it. And so the compromise for this is put a timer on the TV.
Okay.
So the timer goes off like an hour after you go to bed or like shortly thereafter so that it's not on all night.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I am definitely not a fan of TV in the bedroom.
Yeah.
I know it's an unpopular opinion. I know there are a lot of people. I mean, I think most people probably do have a TV in their bedroom, but I'm not for it personally. I don't think it's a
Mm-hmm.
great idea.
Yeah. Now, this is something I think probably more recent that I've seen like on social media and stuff like that. I don't know if you're familiar with this and if there's pros and cons to it. It's like a mouth tape at night so that
Yes.
yeah. What can you
Yes.
talk about that a little bit more? Because that seems to be like a newer trending thing right now.
Yes. So it's mouth taping. I started doing that a few years ago. And basically what it's
And it's not
forcing.
like duct tape that's going to rip the skin off your face,
No, no.
right?
It's so there are several brands on the market. There are tons of them now. But you can get this stuff called like 3M micropore tape or something like that. That's like the very
Mhm.
cheap version. And you can just put a little bit over your lips vertically, just a little strip. The purpose of this is to force you to do nasal breathing overnight because when you're
Mhm.
nasally breathing, you are putting your body in a more calm state. You're putting it more in the parasympathetic state. Now, the caveat though is if your nose is obstructed,
Mhm.
you need to deal with that, because if you've
Yeah.
if you've shut your mouth but with the tape and you can't breathe through your nose, well, you got to breathe somehow. So
Right.
my recommendation for people who want to experiment with mouth taping is, first and foremost, try the tape during the day. Sit there at your desk for a couple hours while you work, put the tape on to make sure you're comfortable with it and that you can
Mhm.
breathe through your nose. That's kind of how I broke myself into doing it. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's kind of a trend, but it's not like a super like trend. I think it's just something that people have started doing more in the past few years. I think that
Okay.
people will probably still continue to do it.
My husband, I had actually found a couple of years ago on Amazon. It was like this, it's like this head thing that like just kind of wraps around his head and keeps his mouth shut. Is that basically like the same thing?
Oh, interesting. Now that's a different take. I've never seen that before,
Yeah, it's like this big
but
head wrap thing. Like it's soft and everything like that. So it
uh-huh.
just wraps around his head and it comes under his chin so that his mouth
Okay.
isn't like wide open snoring
Okay.
then and breathing
Interesting.
loud.
Yeah, there are a lot of contraptions out there that people will tell me about. And I'm like, I have not seen that one yet. They haven't advertised that one to me yet. I get a lot of ads about sleep stuff, but not for that yet.
Hmm. Yeah, because it's not just about your own sleep. Obviously, if there's people around you, my dog is actually a super loud snorer and hummer in the middle of the
Mm,
night, and sometimes she
yeah.
gets me up. And so, just kind of being aware of what are some of those other factors, like you said, whether it's ambient noise from a television, other people in the house, in your room, those types of things, as well as then environmental factors.
Yeah, we definitely just want to think about our bedrooms as a cave, cool, dark, and quiet.
Hmm.
So I kind of mentioned the temperature, with the quiet, to mask like the sounds of animals and random house noises and creaks. A lot of people will get a white noise machine,
Hmm.
or they'll use earplugs to kind of mask out those unwanted noises. And then with the light, I recommend that people do one of two things: either have an eye mask that they put on, or have blackout shades,
Okay.
because both of those are really effective in keeping out the light. Well, the light keeping out from the outside for the shades, but if there's like little lights in your bedroom, like sometimes you might have these little appliance lights that are annoying, then
Hmm.
the eye mask takes care of that.
Right. Now, just curiously, I have two questions to ask about. One, I had heard brown noise or pink noise was actually better than white noise when it came to trying to sleep. There's something about the frequency of those noises. Are you familiar with any of that?
I have heard a little bit about the frequencies being different, but I haven't really taken the opportunity to study the different frequencies to
Mhm.
to really give you an answer on which is best. But I think it's such a personal thing. I think that sometimes people just have really specific preferences to specific types of noises, whether it's brown, pink, blue.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm making that up. I'm
Yeah.
not
No,
sure.
there's all different ones. My daughter liked
But
green, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean there's a rainbow of noises,
Yeah.
but I just like the plain old kind of white noise. It's a white noise machine from a company called Dome, or Yoga Sleep. I think it's called Yoga Sleep, and it's just an analog machine. It's not connected to the phone. It's just little kind of little dome, and
Hmm.
that's what I use. But yeah, the options are endless. You can even do like nature sounds. I
Okay.
mean, tons of things out there.
Now,
Music.
okay. Now, something else I had done for a while, I had read that tart cherry juice helped your body make its own melatonin so that you weren't dependent on it. Anything? Just curious. I'm interested in
Yeah,
your thoughts on that as well.
yeah. There's a little bit of data showing that tart cherry juice can help with sleep because it has natural melatonin in it. But I don't think the data is super strong. And I've never really met anyone that said, oh my gosh, this tart cherry juice supplement was a game changer. I think I tried one once.
Hmm.
I did not notice anything. But some people, it's just one of those individual things. You try it and see if it works for you. But there's not like a whole lot of evidence that it's like a game changer for sleep.
Right. So it sounds like there's definitely some basic things as far as looking at the temperature of your room, looking at your blood sugar. Definitely, I think I've also read that alcohol, if you drink alcohol at night, that's going to cause one of those sugar drop cortisol spike things in the middle of the night as well.
Yeah, definitely. I would be very mindful about alcohol consumption before bed,
Hmm.
because they've done studies showing that it does impact your sleep quality. So there was one study showing that up to one glass of alcohol for a woman could drop her sleep quality by like up to 38%, which is a
Yikes.
lot. And then
Yeah.
as you add that drinks up over the course of the evening, the sleep quality just tanks even more. And
Mhm.
you're really at risk of losing some of that very precious REM sleep. It will cut
Mhm.
off some of your REM sleep in the first part of the night, which is a valuable stage of sleep for emotional regulation and memory consolidation. So for people who want to have alcohol, my recommendation is really to have it in the earlier part of the night, like happy hour versus a nightcap. So 5 o'clock versus 8, and allow
Yeah.
yourself like at least a 3 hour window for your body to process the alcohol is
Mhm.
what I would recommend.
Okay. So yeah, so we're looking at sugar, temperature, light, noise.
Yeah. And then one more that's really important, food.
Mhm.
So you want to make sure that you're eating your dinner early enough in the evening so that you have at least a 2 hour window between going to bed, like finishing your dinner and
Yeah.
going to bed, because your body has to choose between healing, sleeping, and digesting the food. And it's gonna prioritize digesting the food before the sleeping and the healing part starts. So whatever you can do to like make sure you've got that sort of window would be really helpful. It helps your deep sleep as well,
Mhm.
because when you eat too much too late, it will kind of create more heat, and your body is like getting a little bit warmer. And again, that heat can wake you up.
And so even though we talked a lot about what to do if you're waking up in the middle of the night versus having issues with falling asleep, I don't know if you have like a specific nighttime routine, if there's things you do as far as when it comes to getting ready at night to help kind of prime that falling asleep part of the night.
Yeah, so I would start by dimming the lights in your house about 2 hours before bed,
Mm-hmm.
so that your body is able to produce its own melatonin, because the light will impact your melatonin if you've got it too bright, or if you're using devices. So try to, maybe use blue blocking glasses at night if you have to use a screen, but try to, dial down your use of a screen at night. I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's pretty important, at least in the half hour before bed is pretty critical. And also warm baths can be helpful for some people as a relaxing practice,
Mm-hmm.
because the warm bath actually helps cool your core body temperature to help you sleep,
Yeah.
which is like kind of a nice little benefit, as well as just baths can be relaxing for a lot of people. So, really, also choosing to not have anything that's cognitively stimulating. So, I heard somebody say once, reduce novelty an hour or two before bed. I thought that was a really good tip, because basically the novelty brings new stimulation, maybe different cognitive stimulation to your life. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of doing the same thing every night, like whether that's reading a book or stretching or talking with your partner, but if you're going to have a conversation with somebody, like with your partner or your family members, try to make sure that like you're not going into like topics that could be triggering and could cause you to get riled up before bed. So that's important too.
Yeah. No, and definitely I would love to know, what are some of your personal favorite practices?
Oh, you're going to laugh at this. My actual wind down routine is watching TV. I
Okay.
know it's shocking to a lot of
No.
people, but now we talked about the TV before in bed. Now my TV is actually in a living room, and
Mm-hmm.
it's fairly far away from me. I have the lights off. I have a candle going. I have my blue blockers on. And this is really important. I'm watching content that is not stimulating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching comedies, cooking shows, decorating shows, things that are just not going to get you too stimulated.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is I watch TV for, 30 minutes or so. I start to get sleepy, and then I'm off to bed. So that's my personal, way of winding down. But there are a lot of other people who are like, wow, I would not do that before bed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just such an individual thing. I think it's really just something that people need to think about like what is actually going to relax me, and kind of stick with that plan.
Yeah, I think once you find what works for you, you develop that muscle memory of your body
Yeah,
knowing what those steps are. And so even if it might seem foreign to somebody else, your body knows that's my bedtime routine.
exactly. Yeah, you've got those cues that sort of say to your body and brain, hey, sleep is on the way. So yeah,
Mhm.
great point.
And definitely, I think all of the things we've talked about, like you were saying, they're so individual. It's going to be so specific as to how different people function, what their lifestyle's like, what's going to work for them. What are some of the different, like we said, things that might try, whether it's our cherry juice, whether it's brown noise, whether it's magnesium, and all sorts of different things. And so obviously working with somebody, working with a coach is going to help you kind of zero in on what different things might be more beneficial. And so how can people work with you, Morgan? How can they find you?
Thank you for asking that. So they can find me on my website, morganadamswellness.com. They are welcome to book a call with me, a consultation for no charge, where we can talk about their sleep struggle and determine if sleep coaching is a good fit for them. If not, I have lots of other people in the sleep world I can refer them to.
Awesome. Awesome. And your links will definitely be live in the show notes below. So thank you so much, Morgan. Oh my gosh. It was like a little master class in finding your best sleep ever, because you gave just so many different ways to look at your sleep, so many different ideas about how to work through it, as well as then just knowing that they could have that support of someone kind of objectively from the outside guide them through all those ups and downs is fantastic. So thank you so much for everything.
You're very welcome. Great to be here.
Thanks so much again for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know any questions or comments that you have. Also, if you can please leave an Apple 5-star review so that this episode can be shared with more women. There's 2 quotes that I love. Alone we may be strong, but together we are stronger, as well as when women support each other, incredible things happen. So let's be stronger and incredible together, as well as maybe just have some fun along the way. Thanks so much and talk to you soon. Bye.